Okay, so guys, welcome back to Courage Dear Heart. This is Charli Wall, and today I'm joined by the very fabulous Tania Elfersy. Welcome, Tania.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
And Tania's going to be talking to us about all things menopause, and this is part two of a two-part series that I've done over the last week. One with Kathy Casey last week, and this week with Tania, whose website is called thewiserwoman.com. And I'll link to that in the show notes. So you'll hear more about Tania in a second. But just before we start, I like to ask everybody, because my podcast is called Courage Dear Heart, what the word courage means for you.
Yeah, I love that question. I don't know if I may have answered it differently in different times in my life, but right now it means standing in your truth. And that doesn't have to mean that you stand in your truth and make a public statement about it, but it means standing in your truth when perhaps there's others around you that don't think that's a good idea or don't agree with you. And certainly in this work, it does take courage to stand in your truth and to say something very different from what most of society believes. But it, like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean publicly, but just for everyone to find their inner truth and follow that.
Thank you. It sounds like you've got some real experience of speaking your truth.
Yes. It seems to be a theme going through my life. And that's a good thing, because then I realize, oh, that's just something I do in terms of publicly speaking my truth. And then I can sort of relax into that, and it's okay. It's okay that I say things that, people think, well, that sounds mad and that can't be true. And what's she saying now? So yes, but once you once you realize that it's just something you can do, you can feel more comfortable in it. And I definitely feel that this is a theme also for women at midlife, that at menopause, our truth bubbles to the surface. And we may have spent years, decades trying to push it down, trying to please other people, trying to fit into a certain role. And for a good reason, at menopause, our body says, no more. This is your truth, and now it's going to be front and center. And the reason for that is because when we live in our truth and we're not trying to push it down all the time with stress or run away from it or be someone else, we end up living a much healthier, more wholesome life. And I think that that's part of the design of menopause, to bring us into that position to live that kind of life, because that's going to protect us as we move forward in the decades beyond menopause.
Yeah, no, that's really resonates with me, and I think a lot of the women that I work with, a lot of the women in my circle community, I know that you've come and spoken to them. I hear a lot about the word "speak my truth" seems to resonate with them on a soul level, but I think there's fear there. So I'd love for you to talk about your experience, certainly from the principles, the work that we're both involved in, and seeing something around the menopause for yourself. Can you just give us a little background about that?
Yeah, just how I came into this sort of weaving this together. Is that what
Yes,
you're
yes,
to cover?
please.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So I had been struggling with perimenopause symptoms for several years, and at the beginning I didn't know what they were. I just thought I was completely falling apart. Like many women in their early 40s, we're not thinking about the change. We think that's at 51. For some reason, I, like many women, thought, oh, that's just 51. That's just going to happen at 51, as if in an instant I will suddenly be in menopause, like as if, my teenage years happen overnight. No, they did not. All the development that happens in those years, it takes years. But for some reason, I had the idea, no, I'm not going anywhere near change. And certainly in those times, which was, around 10 years ago, perimenopause was less discussed than it is today. For well, I presume in your group, many people already know now, but perimenopause is the years that lead up to the menopause, and it could be 10 years, it could be even more, where the body starts going into change. So I was experiencing symptoms, feeling like I was falling apart, had no idea, no framework for it, couldn't understand it. And then I heard about perimenopause, and it sort of put things in a framework for me. But when you start researching perimenopause, the thing that comes front and center is your hormones. It's your hormones. They're somehow getting it wrong. They need fixing. And immediately that didn't feel right for me, coming from a sort of background where sort of feminist, woman centered. I was like, well, how does that make sense? Why would my body be getting it wrong when I came into midlife? What is it suddenly got stupid? Like, why is that? And I've got 3 kids and I've had natural births, and I was like, well, my body could do that. Well, it can't get through menopause. That's weird. So I was looking around and doing more and more research, but everything was really stuck in this idea of your hormones getting it wrong. And I already realized that I was in this state of feeling not enough, just because when my business was at the time and juggling with motherhood, my kids were much younger, and sort of feeling like I wasn't getting it together. I wasn't feeling enough. And that was something that sort of a repetitive thought, you could say, that kept coming to me. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not succeeding. I used to be at the top of my game when I was in corporate, whatever, right? All these messages that kept coming through. And then I came across Michael Neill's book, The Inside Out Revolution. Who's Michael Neill's one of the well-known coaches and teachers of the 3 principles, and I hadn't even finished the book when I had an insight that basically, to sum it up, was I don't need to take my thinking seriously, and if I don't, life will probably be easier. And one of the symptoms that I'd been experiencing at the time was 2 weeks of PMS. I was experiencing night sweats and eczema and migraines frequently, and lots of other things. But the big one for me was the 2 weeks of PMS, because that was just like I felt crazy for 2 weeks of the month. And I kind of worked it out. Oh yeah, it's sort of from ovulation to menstruation. But when I had that insight, I thought, wow, if I don't take my thoughts seriously, I think I'm not going to have PMS. I think that's going to clear it up. And what happened was, literally within days, all my symptoms disappeared, including like the most physical, obvious one was like this eczema that I used to get on my hands from different hands.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and they just all disappeared. And so I'd seen something about thought that seems very simple, but obviously for me, it had a very profound effect. And I often say to women, yeah, I wish I could just cut and paste and give you that, insight. But it doesn't work like that in terms of insights, unfortunately, or fortunately, because we're all going to see them on our own journey. But for me, that sort of that idea of I'm not enough, it suddenly didn't mean anything to me when it came in. It doesn't mean that thought never came in again. It comes in, but I completely changed my relationship to my thoughts. And that gave me freedom. I saw it as a freedom. Like I didn't realize before that if I had a thought, I had an option to take it seriously or not. So it was this freedom that had opened up for me. Oh yeah, the thoughts can come in. It doesn't mean they define me. I don't have to take them seriously. And I was literally sort of symptom free for 9 months until something stressful was going on with my kids' school and lots of meetings and emails and agitation and blah, blah. And I started taking everything very seriously, and my symptoms started creeping back. And I was like, oh no, I'm a fake. No, I haven't understood it. Because I'd linked everything, to an understanding of how stress is created and how experience is created, etc. And I was like, oh no, I'm a fake. All my symptoms are coming back. And then I had another insight, which was your default is joy. Which meant for me, it doesn't matter what's going on in school, at work, whatever. Your default is always joy. And again, sounds very simple. For me, it had sort of a profound impact. And all my symptoms disappeared again. And then I was like, oh, I'm not fake. It actually does work. This is amazing. And then I was like, okay, I definitely need to share what I've seen. And so I just weaved it all together, the understanding of the principles and what I'd seen about women's health, and this idea that actually we're not broken. No, it's not our hormones getting it right. What if our hormones are getting it absolutely, I mean, it's not that our hormones are getting it wrong. What if they're getting it absolutely right? And what if there's a purpose behind change? And this is what I brought forward and created a course and started helping women.
And the course is brilliant, I have to say. So we'll link to that. I don't know if I can. Can I link to it at the moment, your course?
Yes.
Yes.
It's ongoing. You can.
Yes. Yes, it's an evergreen. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, you were saying that there about your symptoms, and then they came back, and I kind of resonate with, as you know, with anxiety. It came back last October just for a period, and I remember thinking, that's it, I'm a fake, it didn't work, I knew I was broken. But actually that wasn't the case. So you've written a course which I love. As I've said, I did it maybe a couple of years ago now, and your message is slightly different to the one we heard last week. Can you tell us a little bit more about the hope that you see in menopause for women?
Yeah. Basically, I'm coming with this idea that I am convinced is true, that there's innate wisdom always within our body. And that wisdom, brilliance, is there to guide us, no matter where we are in journey of our life cycles. So it's impossible for me, as I see it, to say we get to a point in time and then our body starts working against us, or our hormones step outside of mind, what we use in the three principles, or what we can say is the intelligence behind all life, right? Mm-hmm. So if we were to accept this narrative that somehow our hormones are getting it wrong and our symptoms are because of this fluctuation in hormones, then we would have to accept that hormones are somehow working outside of wisdom or the intelligence behind life. And I don't see how that's possible. I don't see how that's possible for the hormones or any part of my body. I believe that my body is designed to always, no matter what, bring me back into balance, into this state that will best serve me, not only in the present moment, but also moving forward. So there is this very convincing theory that because women experience all these symptoms at midlife, then it must be the fluctuation in hormones that cause the symptoms. Mm-hmm. Whereas I say we do have fluctuation in hormones, but for example, our estrogen level only ever falls down to the levels that we had pre-teen. And preteens do not have the symptoms that menopausal women have. So it really can't be a thing of, oh, we just need to boost your estrogen or even your progesterone, or it can't be that, because that would mean that preteens would have the same symptoms as menopausal women. Mm. Our hormones, it's part of the design that they go through this fluctuation. It's part of the design that our estrogen falls, and it must be for good reason. It's hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. But somehow mid last century, growing from an idea of early last century where they were like, oh, it's the ovaries that are getting it wrong. It's like the ovaries die. And then that moved on to mid last century. No, it's the estrogen that women lack. And then menopause got called a estrogen deficiency or hormone deficiency disease, saying that, that's what women need because their bodies suddenly lack something in order to be healthy. And I'm saying that can't be true. That cannot be true. That cannot be true, that naturally our body starts lacking something. What happens is, the way I see it, is perimenopause and menopause are sensitive times in a woman's life, just as teenage years, just as pregnancy, just as postpartum. In those sensitive times, for different reasons, at different parts of our life cycle, our body really wants to bring a message to us. And for example, easiest to understand, when we're pregnant, if we are out of balance, that could harm us and the baby. So the body has no tolerance for behaviors that are out of balance. That means if you're not moving enough, like your legs are going to start hurting you, pretty soon. If you're really, really stressed, you're going to start getting symptoms. If you're working too hard, you're going to start getting symptoms, right? Because the body wants to keep you in balance. When we're in perimenopause and menopause, if we live high stress, not great nutrition, not much movement, not much fresh air, not much sun, all the basics of basic health, the body is going to start talking to us and say, I may have let you get away with that in your 30s, but right now you're going to learn something different. Because if you don't learn it now, as you move beyond menopause, your body's going to be more sensitive, perhaps more open to disease, which is totally not inevitable, despite the dominant narrative that tells us that it is. But you need to learn now how to find your innate health. Because if you don't learn now, then perhaps I can't prevent disease. This is the body talking. Perhaps I can't prevent disease like in the future. But like I said, disease isn't inevitable. So there's a real point for this sensitive time. There's a real point for what, like I talked about, the bubbling to the surface of our truth, of wisdom, to get us to tap into our passions, what we love. If we're not in great relationships, to really work out, well, how am I going to be in a great relationship? Because being in a not great relationship, for whatever reason, is not going to serve you, moving down the line. Or if you're in the job that just sucks out all the energy and there's no, maybe that's not the right job, or maybe there's something in the job that you can change. But if you keep pushing through and say, I just need to do it, I'll just ignore it, I'll just ignore all the signs, the body's going to say, no, I'm not having it. And I'm going to start sending you feelings, and I'm going to start sending you symptoms until you wake up. And so, for example, my example was all around stress. I heard the idea that I wasn't enough, and I really believed it. And because I felt so bad, I thought that was true. And then I thought, well, there's things that I need to do, write in a gratitude journal, say mantras, positive
And all those.
all that stuff that we do in order to, spend hours and hours meditating, doing all these things and failing at them, by the way, because I never really did them properly. But thinking like that was what I needed to do in order to feel better, when I didn't. I actually didn't. I just needed to understand how my experience was being created, and to understand that from love, my body was communicating with me. It was all from love. It was all to bring me back into balance, and it was all to protect me as I move forward. So this idea that, somehow our hormones are getting it wrong, somehow they're going crazy, somehow, there's no hope for women in menopause. I just don't believe that's true. From my experience, I've seen that's not true. And from the women that I support and have helped and have witnessed their own symptoms just disappear through insight, it really doesn't appear to be true, that dominant narrative. So there is hope, because we're not destined to malfunction. Our hormones aren't getting it wrong. Our body isn't betraying us. Our body loves us, and it will do whatever it needs to do for us to wake up and for us to tap into what I like to call the wiser woman within, which is that wisdom that can always guide us and that can help us. What do we really love? Where are our passions? What's going to light us up? And we're allowed to connect to that, because that's where health lies. Not denying that they exist, not pretending that our needs shouldn't be met, not staying in places or relationships or whatever that don't serve us. We have that wisdom inside to guide us, but we need to learn, it seems, to listen to the voice of wisdom, which we all have, because it's not something that anyone tells us is there.
I know, which is mental, right? I just think I think I always knew that there was a voice that I used to sort of think, God, I'm really clever when I go to sleep. Why am I so clever at night and not in any way, shape, or form in the day? That was honestly a question I used to ponder over. And then when my father died, I remember very clearly needing everything to be silent so that I had this overwhelming desire to tune into that voice, which came just from instinct and intuition. And of course, I was lucky enough financially, because I sold everything, to be able to have some time to do that. What would you say to someone who doesn't know how to tune into that voice of wisdom, that wiser woman with insight within them?
Yeah, I think it's about play at that point, right? We don't need to take it too seriously. Oh, I must find my wiser voice, I must find the wisdom. But there are many ways that we can start listening out for intuition. So, guided meditation, although I'm not saying do it every day, whatever, is a way, for example, for people to hear a different voice, or playing with cards, or just sitting out in silence, wherever that could be, in nature or in your garden or in your bedroom, right? And just trying to discern, does something sound different? Like, is there something that's talking to me? And I'm not like, oh yeah, voices in your head, like, but it actually is like something that you can hear that sounds different, and it comes with a different quality. So if you're struggling and if people listening and they're like, I've never heard that voice before, I have no idea what you're saying. So there are, three ways that I've just mentioned. There are many other ways that you can play. And like I said, that doesn't mean that this is a practice that you need to do, but it's just ways that you can play to hear something that sounds like guidance. Now that voice sounds like a whisper. It's not the marching band. It's not the screaming person. It's not what I would say is the sort of bitchy, judgmental voice. That's not wisdom. And those things come with a quality of feeling that you can learn to separate, right? Like if you hear something and it makes you feel uptight and constricted and fearful, and there's an urgency about it, and even if it's actually something positive, like, oh yeah, this is what I used to suffer from, like, oh yeah, I used to be, at the top of my career and blah blah blah, and that was like a positive thing. But here's the thing, when you take that seriously, if then you see something that doesn't match up to that expectation of you, like, oh, I also used to have that expectation, oh, I get, I'm a goal setter and goal achiever, right? Because I could say, oh, look at all these goals that I set for myself and achieved. But then I would really hold on to that as a belief. And that came with a certain energy, if you like, of a bit urgency, sort of something like a bit quick. I don't really know how to describe it. And there's not really truth there for me either, even though it's a positive thing, because they were goal setting and achieving, that's positive. But it came with like this urgency, this tightness, this sense of, oh, and thus I need to continue down that road. But when something comes with lightness and clarity, and it's clear, and it's more like a whisper, that's wisdom speaking to you. So it's available always, if we're just willing to calm down a little bit, just willing to sit a little bit in silence. And it can happen. I remember a time when I was so upset about something. It was actually with the school, that whole school crisis that I talked about earlier. And I was so upset and I was crying and everything. And I heard this little voice, it's time to move school. And because was already aware of what that sounded like, that little voice, I heard it even though I was crying. So you don't have to then go to guided meditation, go and sit by a lake, go and, whatever, to hear the wisdom. It's always there for you, but you need a little bit of practice to recognize it, to discern, oh yeah, that voice sounds different, and it comes with a different kind of feeling. And unfortunately, we grow up in our societies to completely ignore it or not be aware of it, or, you know, and I think there's a reason for that, because if we all really understood from an early age that we're all tuned into this stream of wisdom and intelligence that could guide us, and it's divine, and that divine guidance isn't found in organized religion, someone else important, right? But found in each one of us. That's a really powerful thing for people to know. And perhaps society is not really interested in us knowing it. And especially when it comes to the surface at menopause, because it really does. I mean, I've seen it in so many women, like saying similar things like, I just realized I don't care what anyone else thinks about me anymore, or, you know, I don't care that people think I'm, you know, going on a completely career, you know, whatever, not in the right direction. I don't care. You know, there's this sense of the truth coming to the woman's truth coming to the surface. It's there, and society probably wants more for us to believe, no, you're malfunctioning. No, your discomfort is a sign that you're malfunctioning. No, the discomfort is there is this wisdom coming to the surface and we're not listening to it. That's
So what you're saying, what I was hearing there and what you were saying is that there's a wiser woman within us, which is a voice, a quieter voice that we can sometimes hear, but the body's own wisdom is to try and wake you up from your sort of paying attention to your stressful thinking by giving us symptoms, which I guess to people listening to me, that makes sense because that's been my experience, my embodied experience, having had sort of chronic anxiety, which I didn't know I had until I didn't have it anymore. I'm wondering if the women listening to this, I know there's always a question around HRT, right? I'm wondering if the women listening to this who are sort of struggling and saying, how are their gifts, and, you know, how are these symptoms gifts? I'm struggling, I've got anxiety, I've got hot flushes, I've put on weight, you know, all these things that can be all consuming. And I suspect fear driven. Can you speak to, like, explaining to women the kindness of the design?
Yeah, great question. First of all, I absolutely know what it's like to be in the soup of symptoms. Been there.
The soup of symptoms, is that what you called it?
Because it's so, you know, there's so many coming at you. You just don't like, and you think, what's that game when you put one away?
Whack-a-mole. Yeah.
You put one away, another one pops up, right? Because I was always like running to the acupuncturist, trying to take herbs of this and creams for that and this, and then another thing would come up, and another thing, and it really is a soup of symptoms. I remember really well what that feels like, and it's, you know, you just want to. I just wanted to feel like myself again. I just would do anything, just anything, and it was that sense, just give me the thing that will make me feel like myself again. And I didn't understand that the thing was already in me. I didn't need the external thing, and that's the great news. But every woman is going to have her own journey. So for me, you know, I'd spent years in different self-development, reading, researching, etc., etc., etc. And then I got to this point, and people go, well, how did you read Michael Neal's book and have that insight immediately and all your symptoms disappear? I don't know, but that's what happened for me for whatever reason. So women are going to find their insights at different times, and it's going to pop up at a different moment. And for some people, it'll be washing the dishes, literally. You know, for some people, it may be when they go, you know, to sit by a lake or whatever. But you are guided, I'm speaking to the listeners, on your journey. And your journey will be just right for you. So if women are now taking some kind of HRT or anti-anxiety medication or antidepressant medication, whatever it is, you will know what is right for you. And I'm not a doctor. I never tell women, what to take in terms of medication or to come off medication or whatever. But I tell them, tune in to your wisdom, because it will tell you what's right for you. And sometimes when there's so much noise in our head, and I know this with women who I've worked with, that HRT or the anti-anxiety medication or whatever it is can come in and it can just turn down the volume enough so that she can hear something that she hasn't heard before, right? And so those medications, they can have a place. But the problem with them is that we think that those are a must come midlife. That's what society tells us. That's what so many doctors, and I've listened to so many, who, like, they'll talk, even over the last few years, all the promises that HRT used to offer, doctors have had to shut up a bit about it because there isn't any evidence. And especially in the US, they really can't promise that HRT is going to help with heart conditions and stop cancers and et cetera, et cetera. They're not allowed to say that anymore. In the UK, doctors somehow have a bit more liberty to still say those things. I don't know why, because all the science shows otherwise. But anyway, so they really reduced the numbers the things that they talk about, the number of symptoms they talk about that HRT can help. But even though the sense very much is, oh yeah, you can sort of do yoga, do meditation, mindfulness, blah, 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 blah. But if you really want to get to the end of your symptoms, you must take HRT. Okay, maybe bioidentical HRT, but that's what you need. And I'm hopefully sharing a more hopeful message that you don't need it. If you, on your journey, are taking it and you're finding it's turning down the volume, that's fine. But I've definitely worked with women who started off, they were taking it and they've realized, oh, I just don't need it anymore because I've seen something about where my innate health lies and I've understood something new. And it doesn't matter that the hormones are fluctuating. It doesn't matter that the estrogen is dropping because that is part of the design. And I'm moving on. I'm moving through. I'm moving to my wiser woman. I'm going to sell my throne. I'm moving to management level, however we want to look at it.
Sovereignty.
Sovereignty. I love that word. And they've realised that they can come off whatever they've been on. But it was incredibly useful on their journey for some women. And by the way, other women, they take it and they feel even worse. So, it just, every woman is on their own journey.
Well, we're all unique. That's it, isn't it? We're all as unique as snowflakes. And yeah, the one size fits all. It's a bit like with the diet industry, I guess, isn't it? This mentality that women have to shrink to be valuable.
Yes, and that's another thing that comes up often in menopause, like this whole, pressure. Now you're in menopause, you need to work even harder at the gym because you need to take off that weight because it's not going to come off with your regular exercise routine. And I come on and go, wait a minute. All over the world, across all cultures, women put on weight at midlife. Do you think there's any intelligence in that? Like, maybe we don't have to fight to take it off. And then I speak to women, often women sort of who are like a Pilates teacher or like they used to train in triathlons and things like that. And they're like, I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to go out for a walk. What does that mean about me? And what it means, because I'm hearing it so often, is that our bodies need different things at different times of life. And this idea that, the menopause weight, we need to take it off, that's made up. It's made up. Women across the world put on weight at midlife. And there appears to be some great reason for it. We don't have to fight it. But again, it's all in that really aggressively pushed message. Don't change, right? Get to midlife and don't change. Keep dressing the same, keep being the same weight, make sure you don't. Keep your hair the same, do cut, knit, whatever you want to call it, right? Just don't change. And I'm saying, wait a minute, it does seem like it's part of the design that we change. I don't think our bodies, I don't think society as a whole, when you look at us as one whole big humanity, I don't think that is interested, humanity and our individual bodies are interested in the no change. They're interested in us becoming wiser women. They're interested in us tuning more into our wisdom or into our intuition. And when we do that, and then we become wiser women, not only are we going to feel better in ourselves, but we're going to serve our families and we're going to serve society around us. But we have to go on that journey and we have to see that we're going to change. Otherwise, what's the point? Right? We're going to stay with the wisdom, or that level of wisdom that we felt in our 30s, which was good then. But when there's so much more to access, and clearly there's a journey that we're supposed to make, let's not fight that and pretend that, oh yeah, there is a route of no change. No, you're going to change, and that's the design.
I just love what you said there, because yes, working in this understanding with people is change is happening all the time, every single day, around us, everywhere, including our body. A lot of the women I work with have difficult relationship with their bodies, which can be exacerbated obviously at midlife. And just listening to you then, I was really struck by, and this was before I came across the principles, as I was saying, when my dad died, I just stopped exercising. I did a bit of yoga, but I started walking twice a day with my dog. I moved away. I sold my business. I just stopped doing, stopped following all the people in the diet, nutrition, even though that had been a passion, but it had been a passion for the wrong reasons, looking back, because I was obsessed with looking a certain way as a personal trainer. And that I just have I've been really lucky in my life to just follow intuition all the way along. And now it really, what you were saying there, my own embodied experience of following that. I don't want to lift another deadlift bar at the moment. I just don't want to. It was just like, I just don't want to do it, because I'd been fighting my body's natural shape from a really young age, I'm just going to read a couple of the comments. What I'm going to say, Tania, is I know you're in my group. You're in my Facebook group, which is where this is going live. If anyone's got any questions when they're listening back, feel free to post them. I'll put it in the guide section. But Anna Saunders has said, this is wonderful to listen to. I'm 49 this year. I keep looking for symptoms as friends have experienced them. Maybe my body is more in tune than I realize. As listening to Tania, I now feel I'm just looking for problems that might not be there ever.
You see, it's that narrative. It's downhill from now on. Oh, I must be experiencing symptoms. No, it must be your hormones. It must be your hormones about to trick you up. And actually, it's so simple. It's like when we live in well-being, that sense of our innate health blossoming, symptoms are not inevitable. They're really not. But, in our society, we're told they are. So, yeah.
And I think it's really interesting, isn't it, in the sort of, that is the narrative with women at this age. And so once you start, it's like when someone says, oh, I'm really tired, you sort of like, oh yeah, me too. So sort of, you're looking for it. Anyway, Anita Scott has said, thank you so much for this wisdom. Tania, I have thought the same. So that is, I think, what I hear from listening to you, and I think what everyone will hear, is that there's an intuition, a deep rooted female and male, but I'm sort of speaking to women today, intuition that is so strong, and then we get scared. And I think I'm sort of circling back to your, speaking your truth, even if it is scary to do so, is something that women for generations have experienced. And I thank you for speaking your truth around this, because I think it's it's incredibly valuable for women to know that there is hope, that you have experienced this for yourself, you have worked with women and seen this change, and how wonderful a gift you are.
I'm just showing up where I'm inspired. So it's not me. It's something, moving me.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And that's important, isn't it? Because if we think it's all on us, to change the world, it isn't. It's something moving through us that I trust very deeply now. It's like I said to you at the beginning, I haven't written any questions down because I find that what's meant to come through tends to come through.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really is a sort of theme for midlife, right? What's meant to come through will come through, because we can come into it and think, oh, I'm going to control it, and this is going to be my plan. And by the time I'm 50, blah, 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 right? And then all of a sudden, something else bubbles up, and suddenly we realize, oh, that's what I love doing. That's what's pulling me right now. And wow, perhaps I can, grab that opportunity. And it seems to be like this blossoming theme, actually, of especially over the last year and a half, that people are really sort of like viewing their life a little bit differently, and realizing, maybe all that chatter about why I can't do this and why I can't be, that, working in that or playing in that or moving there, maybe that's all made up, and I can listen to that voice that's calling me ever so gently, but persistently. And again, when we can say, "Oh yeah, it's not. I don't have to control it or lead it. I almost just need to relax into it. I relax into it. I listen to the voice of wisdom and let that lead me. Let that be my guide." Such a nice way to live.
It is. And I know, and I know I had, I don't know how many years, too many, 35 plus, not living like that. And it's often, I am often in awe of my body, given what I have put it through, that I am still functioning.
So many ways we can look at our bodies and go, oh my God, what did I used to do, etc. And that should really encourage us, actually, because the body is so resilient. It never betrays us. We are not our body. Our body is our intimate divine partner in this life. And it's always going to act from love. Always. So even when we feel overwhelmed by the symptoms, and I know women say to me, they are not gifts, it cannot be true. The body is always, always acting from love, trying to bring us back into balance. And it will do whatever it can. It can't send us an email or a WhatsApp or anything like that. It can only do it through feelings and symptoms. That's the only way it communicates through us, to us. And so once we learn to listen, not only are we going to learn something, and the question I love to ask women is, what does your body want you to know? Like right there. And women normally, like, an answer pops up and they're like, no, I don't want to listen to that. No, but really listen to that first answer. What does your body want you to know? And when we relate to our body as the holder of this wisdom, of this ability to guide us, not only do we start having less symptoms, but even the ones that may remain, we have a different experience of them, because we relate to them with compassion. Oh, this is just what the body's doing now until I get back into balance. This is just the reminder, or this is just the compensation it needs to, make right now until I'm back into balance. And when I'm back into balance, the symptoms will leave you, because the body doesn't need to communicate like that anymore. And then you'll just be sitting more in well-being. But again, it's like, it's since I had those early insights, that was sort of 6 years ago. So I can't say, oh, I've never had a night sweat till then, but since then. But they come at, if I'm really stressed, I get totally lost, and etc. Then maybe I'll have a few nights of night sweats, but I have a completely different experience of them because I know, oh yeah, this is my body telling me I'm out of balance. Wow, that's so interesting. That's so interesting. Like, how do you do that at 3 a.m.? No, but it's true because I don't blame my body. I'm not angry with my body. I completely welcome the reminder. Oh yeah, I'm out of balance. I'm out of balance. Oh yeah, and then I can't work my way into the inside, right? But you just relax, and then you realize, oh yeah, this is why I've just been all up in my head, and I forgot. I forgot how my experience is created. You remember. You come back into balance. The symptoms just disappear again, and that's just the way it works.
And that's the same for the mind. Yeah. So that feels like a really lovely place to finish, Tania. And I really appreciate, again, your time and knowledge and wisdom and pointing us upstream. So thank you.
My pleasure. And we're all walking around in these brilliant, amazing, divine bodies. They just love us. They never can work any other way.
Yeah. And there's a lot of hope in that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So we've got your website. I'll find a link to your course, or you can put it on the group, but send it to me anyway, and I'll put it in the show notes. And have a lovely rest of your evening, because I know it's super late where you are.
It's fine.
For those of you that don't know, Tania's in Israel.
Yeah.
2 hours ahead.
2 hours ahead. Bit sunnier, bit hotter.
Bit sunnier. Yeah, not very sunny here at the moment in the UK. Anyway, lots of love. I'm going to turn it off, but you stay there, and see you, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you watch live, if you watch later, let us know, and it will be up on the podcast very soon.
And people can tag me and I'll answer questions.
Yes, that's another good thing. Thank you very much. Right, stop recording.